Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where in the world you might be located today. We are so excited and welcome you to join us for our session today covering teaching assistantship preparation as well as English proficiency requirements. My name is Grace Fuller. I am the Manager of International Student Experience and Engagement at the International Students and Programs Office, also commonly referred to as ISPO, and I'll hand it over to my colleagues to introduce themselves as well for this webinar.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Lisa Swid, and I am one of the International Student Advisors at ISPO.
Hello, everyone. My name is Shauna Spiora, and I work in the Graduate Division.
Hi, everyone. My name is Martha, and I'm the English Language Program for International Instructors Coordinator. And I want to welcome all of you to today. I'm really eager to support you and answer your questions.
Hi, everyone. I'm Erilyn. I'm in the Engaged Teaching Hub, and I oversee a lot of our grad and postdoc programming, and especially work with our incoming IAs and TAs. And I'm really excited to virtually see you all. I can't wait to see you in person soon.
All right, so as you can see, we have compiled some really wonderful colleagues from across the campus to hopefully answer as many questions as we can today. But I'd like to cover a little bit of housekeeping before we begin. So first, you are in listen-only mode, which means you can hear us, but unfortunately we can't hear you. So because of that, we encourage you to submit all of your questions through the Q&A feature. So the chat has been disabled. The Q&A feature will be the primary way that you submit your questions today. But if for some reason we don't get to your questions during today's webinar, you can also contact us via icontact.ucsd.edu. And then finally, we are recording this webinar. So you'll be able to review all previous webinars that we've recorded at iwebinars.ucsd.edu. So this is a great resource in case you ever want to refer back and brush up on some of this information. All right, so again, this is just highlighting that Q&A feature that should be on the bottom of your screen in your Zoom menu bar. And again, that will be the way that we'll submit questions this morning. We encourage you can submit questions throughout the presentation. So if there's a specific slide where you have a follow-up question, feel free to go ahead and submit that question, but we will wait until the end of the presentation during our live Q&A, our live question and answer, to really get to those questions. So feel free to submit them throughout the presentation, but again, we'll wait until the end of the presentation for open question and answer session to address those. A brief agenda of how we'll spend our time together today. So we'll go over some reminders from the International Students and Programs Office, as well as some important reminders from the Graduate Division. Then we'll hand it over to our amazing colleagues to talk about the English Language Program for International Instructors, as well as the English Language Certification Exam and teaching support. And then similar to our other webinars, we've dedicated a good amount of time for open question and answer, so we can answer those questions that come up. And with that, I'll hand it over to Lisa to go over some ISPO website reminders.
Yes, just a few very quick reminders from ISPO. You are able to request your immigration documents now if you have already accepted your offer of admission and paid your deposit. We opened our iPortal where you can submit your applications for your immigration documents on March 1st, and our advisors are busy processing I-20s and DS-2019s, so students can begin to plan to enter hopefully for this upcoming fall quarter. So please visit our website at inewstudent.ucsd.edu for relevant information about how to request your documents and prepare for arrival. We do hope that you'll be able to enter the United States and begin your program of study in person, but we are aware that there are difficulties in various regions around the world in securing a visa interview at this time. So we do encourage you to apply early for your immigration documents to avoid any delay. Our processing time is 15 business days. We are, at this time, we're not able to expedite any requests. So unless you have a visa appointment already scheduled. So please be sure to request your documents as early as possible and take into account our 15-day processing time. And so I think that that's my only slide. I think I turned over to Shauna for some reminders from graduate admissions.
Thank you so much, Lisa. So I would like to remind everyone to log into their accounts at gradapply.ucsd.edu to view your application portal. And in a moment, we will show a screenshot of what this page looks like. Be sure to fill out your Statement of Legal Residence form. Most students are admitted provisionally. This should not impact your ability to get immigration documents, but it does mean you will have to provide official documentation, and you can find a list of these documents in your application portal. It's under the section Pending Admissions Documents. And if you have any questions about admissions or documentation, please contact gradadmissions@ucsd.edu. I will go ahead and put that in the chat as well, so you have this information. And our graduate admission staff will be able to assist you. So this is what your application portal looks like in the system, and you can see which forms need to be completed under the forms section, and that's under the status update portion on sort of the left-hand part of the page. And then below that is where any pending documents that you need to submit would be located, would be under that section. I would like to also call your attention to the admitted students links that are in the bottom right corner of the page. And so this is where you will find information on all the necessary steps to prepare for starting your graduate program. This is also where you'll find information on orientation and new student activities for new graduate students. As those are scheduled, we are still finalizing those for the upcoming fall. I'm also going to put a link again in the chat directly to the admitted students section of our website so that you can easily find the list. And with that, I think I'll turn it over to my colleagues from the Teaching and Learning Commons.
Hello, my name is Martha. Just to remind you, I am the ELPII Coordinator, and today I've already seen all of the Q&A coming in, and I know you have a lot of questions. I've put a lot of information on the slides for you, so if you go back to the recording, you're going to see many of your questions answered there, and I want to make sure I help all of you today, if at all possible. I'll be handling questions that are less specific to one person and more specific to the group we have today. So next slide, please. Thank you. So welcome to UCSD. I always include images of my students on my slides because I want you to see that our students are happy. These are students who practice their teaching with me. They've all passed the English test. They're all successful grad students and they're all successful TAs. You do see a diverse mix here. We have students from Brazil in my classes, from Korea, Taiwan, China, Iran. We have them from all over the world. And I'm the luckiest person. I have the best job on campus because I get to meet you. Next slide, please. This, by the way, is what remote instruction looked like. These are graduate students from physics, chemistry, and math that I got to meet in a bridge program in September last year. We had an amazing time together. We met for 2 weeks, every day for 2 weeks, Monday through Friday, and we worked on teaching and learning how to help our students learn. And And these students were with me because these departments have a fall quarter, first year teaching requirement. So we want to make sure they're successful from the start of the quarter. And by the way, we also were able to create a supportive community. Our students joined even after the time to meet each other, to help each other with those tests that they have, any exams before they start their program, and they practiced. And we are all a community because at UCSD, our mascot is a Triton. And that's that image you see at the bottom of the screen. We're all Tritons. Next slide, please. So I want to provide you with a lot of info. First of all, about the policy. I noticed the questions in the Q&A. I'm going to be answering many of them. So first of all, my program exists to support and implement the grad division policy. We have this testing policy because it is a UCSD policy, but even larger, it's a UC policy. All of the UC schools have a policy, not to mention the fact that it is a California state policy. At UCSD, TA positions are represented by a union. So that makes this policy an employment policy. That's why we have it. The English language certification exam is the name of the English test many of you will take, and that complies with the resolution for the state, for the UC system, as well as UCSD. And we have supported, meaning I have supported thousands of students in this test. The majority of students, you pass this test at the first time, okay? And one of the questions that came up had to do with a first quarter TA-ship. Some departments, as I mentioned, physics, chemistry, and math, have a first quarter fall TA-ship requirement. And some of the departments don't. So this is department specific. Check your department requirements. Some departments don't want their students to TA in the first quarter. They want you to be academically extremely successful. So they delay that. Okay, next slide, please. What does the ELPII do in general as an overview? This program exists to support international graduate students in their linguistic readiness for employment as a TA. It assists you by helping you develop your skills, but also administering the test. And it also offers language proficiency courses and workshops. All testing and services are free. You pay for nothing. Next slide, please. So what services does the ELPII offer? Testing, of course, but I also offer a pre-fall bridge program to those departments mentioned. I offer English for teaching classes. Unfortunately, I can't open them to all students, but I can open them to students who have taken the ELCE and must have a teaching requirement or current TA-ship to participate. I do offer these workshops: effective presentations, presentation design, pronunciation series, conversation lab, and a workshop on what is the ELCE. We will cover those points today. I also work with faculty and offer them consultations, observations, and feedback. Next slide, please. So, who should test? This is important to note. This is on the website, but I want you to have the information today, now, so you don't have to search. Who should test? If you received a score of 28 to 30, or 8.5 to 9, or 83 to 90 on any of these tests, we accept TOEFL, IELTS, and the Pearson Test of English, PTE, then or in CSE, if you have a 26 to 30, then you have an ELCE waiver. You are exempt. You do not have to take the ELCE, and you can accept an offer for a TA-ship. Those who qualify to take the English language certification exam, including those who were admitted with a TOEFL waiver. If you have a 23 to 27, a 7 to an 8, or a 76 to an 82 on any of those tests, you qualify to take the ELCE, okay? If you do not qualify, and that's below the 23, below the 7, and below the 76, you have an opportunity to qualify. What we're asking you to do is to take a speaking course and to develop your skills before you take the ELCE. And that's because our data indicates over many, many years that students who have a score in these ranges struggle to qualify to TA. And we have different levels of qualifying to TA. So we ask you to do a little bit of work before you take the ELCE. I did get a question on the Q&A that I want to address now about the TOEFL score. If your TOEFL score, if you will not take the ELCE until your 3rd year, your 4th year, meaning past that 2-year of TOEFL being an active score, don't worry. Whatever score you submitted, we will accept that score even if you don't take the ELCE until year 4. Okay, next slide, please. More questions here. These are the most common questions about process, and we have a lot of process. So if I have a TOEFL waiver, do I still have to take the ELCE? I just answered that. Yes, by grad division policy, you have to take it before you can be employed as a TA. How do you sign up for the English test? You don't sign up for it. The first step is to apply for a TA-ship. And then the hiring department will schedule the test for you and notify you. And the next natural question, well, how do I apply for a TA-ship? So information about open TA positions are posted on your department website. So policies start first, not just by the campus-wide, but by your department policies. Next slide. Is the test in person or via Zoom? Currently, it's on Zoom, but eventually it will be in person. I have to say, I've noticed that on Zoom, the students are more comfortable than they are in person. And that's a good thing because you're home, you're comfortable, and you're able to do your best. And that's what we want you to do. I'm also always asked this question, what happens if I'm nervous during the test? Well, the faculty representative and I, or the linguist, we do our best to welcome you. We want you to be comfortable. We want you to be calm because we want you to be successful. Okay. What happens if you don't know the answer to the technical question? Honestly, this is a test about your English readiness. It is not a test about your knowledge. Of course, you have to be qualified to teach the course. And that means that you need to be strategic and you need to review the topics for the course and the basic content. And you should practice. Practicing is going to help you, make you feel more confident. And to be honest with you, we sometimes don't know the answer to the questions that our students ask because maybe we didn't think about it, but we can handle the questions. And that's when you say, honestly, I don't know, I'll have to check for that information, or I might be wrong about this, but I'm going to try to answer your question. Those are all useful. Okay, next slide, please. So how long is the test and how can I know the test questions? It's a 10 to 15 minute live spoken English exam. You will be using the board. I encourage you to. So this test is unrehearsed and unscripted. So it's live. You won't know the test questions. How can you pass the test? You can prepare, relax, do your best, and teach. What I mean by that is answering the question like a student doesn't help you score to the highest level of a pass. Okay, it might get you to a conditional pass or a provisional pass, but I want you to get the highest pass. So what happens if you don't pass? And sometimes that happens. So you have to develop your English and then you can take it again. You do need to check your department policy. And that means I inform you of this because in the computer science department, if you are a master's student, you have one chance to take this test and qualify to TA. You don't have to get the highest, but you have to qualify to TA. Okay. All right, next slide, please. If you fail the ELCE, there is an opportunity to retake the exam, except for the MS students for CSE. That's their department requirement. PhD students, you have to qualify to TA by the third test. And our MS or MA students have to qualify to TA by the second test. Next slide, please. So here's info about the English test. This is what we assessed. We do it on a 4-point scale because that's more familiar to people as the grade point average scale that we use. So a 4.0 is an A. And so for fluency, that's smoothness on the test. We also score pronunciation, listening, question handling, use of general and technical vocab, grammatical accuracy, and organizational clarity. To qualify to TA, a student has to achieve a minimum score of 2.5. That means you're eligible to accept a TA offer. That's a provisional pass. You'll see more about that coming up. But that does mean also you need to develop your skills further. We also, next slide, please. Other skills that are assessed, they're not scored, okay? Eye contact, your use of the Zoom whiteboard or in person, the Blackboard, and speaker manner. That's about confidence, engagement, interactivity. Communication skills are assessed because if they're excellent, that supports your language skills in the classroom, and we want to recognize that. We're not looking for native speaker English. We're looking for English that can support your learners. So demonstrating excellent skills affect you and help you positively. Don't worry. If you need to develop your communication skills, we don't assess them. Okay, they're not a part of the scoring process, but we will support you in developing those skills. Next slide, please. So the test, it's an interview. It's usually in 2 parts. I say usually because some departments have 3 parts, but for the majority of departments, it's 2 parts. The first part's a general warm-up. We use that to get to know you. The second part is when you stand up in person or when you sit remotely and use your tablet or Zoom whiteboard and you teach the committee. The committee is usually 2 people, which is a language assessor, usually me, and the faculty representative. And it's usually 2 people because in other departments, primarily physics, in physics, we have a faculty, the linguist, we have a department representative there as well. So they know how to assign you your class when you qualify to TA. Next slide, please. What can you know about the technical question? This is the number one question I get. You won't know the technical question. This is a test. And that's because when we teach, we don't necessarily know all of the questions our students are going to ask us. So it's a live test and impromptu. The faculty rep, however, will ask you to teach a common question that's asked, a basic question that the student in your TA class would ask you. Some of you will know what TA class you will work for, and others of you won't. If you haven't been assigned a TA class before the test, then we're going to ask you a question from the class you want to TA. Teaching. You will use the Zoom board and teach us the information. I remind you, you're teaching us. We are not quizzing you on your knowledge. So don't answer the question, teach us. When we've heard enough of your language to make a recommendation, we're going to stop you, even if you've not finished teaching. This is a language exam, not a knowledge test. Okay, next slide, please. So how do you do your best? Prepare, pause, pose questions, practice. Most specifically, speak with control and intention to be clear. The fastest way to fail is to speak too quickly without pause. Your students need to hear the information. If you don't deliver it with intention and clarity, as clear as you can be, and if you don't give them time to think about it, no one can learn. So speak with intention and control. Okay, next slide, please. Here at the end of the test, here are the score ranges. You'll notice that 3, the yellow signs, I go by the traffic signals. Green light means go, red light means pause. Okay, so these 3 categories, from a score of a 2.5 to a 4.0, provisional pass, conditional certification, and a pass, you are eligible to accept a TA offer. For students in these score ranges, you are not eligible yet to accept an offer to TA, and more work needs to be done. You'll notice here that even in these ranges, yes, you will be required to polish and develop your skills. I do not work yet with students who have no TA requirement. That said, being on Zoom has helped me to open up the program, and I can support you on Zoom. The limitations were the fact that we didn't have classrooms for everyone. So on Zoom, I can help you and support you. You'll note that for students, 2 categories, you will not be tested again. And in these 3 categories, you will be tested again. Next slide, please. Almost finished. What happens when the test is finished? You get to leave and enjoy your day or your evening. The hiring department will know the recommendation almost immediately after the test because they need to start the hiring process. They will let you know immediately. Departments will not know the details of the recommendation. You will receive the recommendation several weeks via email after the test, and that's because there's one person doing this, and that's me. Next slide, please. So at the end of the day, even if you test into the program, these are students who've participated. They have passed the test, and you can pass this test too. I want you to feel confident about that. And final slide, please. So I want to say thank you for your time and questions. I hope I've answered them. I will be answering in the chat or in the Q&A. And next is Erilyn Henriksen, who's my colleague and education specialist. She's going to present information for you about the test. Thank you so much. Erilyn?
Hi, everyone. So I'm actually presenting about information beyond the test, I guess. So Martha and I both work within what's called the Teaching and Learning Commons, which is an amazing resource to know about on campus. And this, the Teaching and Learning Commons supports both students in developing and succeeding, and then also in supporting educators in continually developing and learning. Because I promise, even after you have an amazing class with Martha, or if you aren't taking the class with her and you're teaching, there's always so much to learn. So I want to clear up some language right away. Instructional assistant is a term that we use a lot at UC San Diego. We also use the term TA, but we use instructional assistant, or IA, to sort of encompass a term that encompasses teaching assistants, which are often called TAs, instructional apprentices, which is very similar to a TA, but usually they're getting credit instead of being paid, and slightly different duties as well. Tutors, and then readers. So it's the umbrella term. So if you hear me say IA, that's what we're talking about. All right, so how do you become an IA? First step is applying to IA positions. And I saw someone asked about how to apply to positions, or how to find out about positions outside of your own department. Graduate Division has put together an amazing database, I guess, of positions that are open. And I answer that in the chat. I don't know if that shows up or I answer that in the Q&A, but I can put it in the chat in just a little bit as well. So you apply to the IA position. And this is after you've taken the exam and worked with Martha potentially, et cetera. All right. And okay, great, you're approved. Cool. Now, how do you teach well, right? So rather than just stumbling through it, teaching can be a lot of fun. And honestly, it's a huge professional development opportunity to get this teaching experience, whether you want to go on in academia, whether you want to go on in industry, or nonprofits, whatever your next step is. Teaching is an amazing professional development opportunity. So if you're going to do that, though, for it to be professional development, you have to do it well. So that's what we're here for. So when you first come in, when you first get approved for an IA position, you're automatically enrolled in an online course that is really not that long. It is incredibly introductory, but it can provide a bit of an overview of areas around like professionalism, around academic integrity, working with students with disabilities, et cetera. So it's well worth just taking the time to go through that, and maybe making notes for later. What I've heard from a lot of folks is it's helpful to know what might be coming, but then it's really helpful to actually go back to that later. So making notes while you're taking that. And again, you'll be automatically enrolled once you're approved for an IA position. Now, your department likely, hopefully, has some great training available for you. And, whether it's official course or whether it's workshops that they offer, if there's a senior TA, they're an amazing resource to work with. And each department should have an IA faculty advisor. And this is a faculty member that is directly assigned / their role is to work with you and to be sort of a liaison for IAs in their department. So they are a great resource as well. And then Engage Teaching has a ton of support for you. We have a new IA teaching symposium right before every fall quarter that anyone is welcome to partake in, whether or not you're planning to actually teach. And you might get an email from me later in the summer about that. That is not, if you get an email from me, it does not mean that you are approved for an IA role, but simply that I know that you're interested in that. And so we want to share that information with you. So with the Engage Teaching support, if we can go to the next slide. Again, there's that, the one requirement from the campus is this online course, and it's well worth your time to just soak that in a little bit and actually make notes about that. Now, we also have other materials. So the departmental training, again, varies by department. And then again, so we have this new teaching symposium. We have workshops all quarter, every quarter, with the exception fewer in the summer. And these workshops are based in evidence-based teaching methods, and we can help you. They're really meant to be timely and practical. So anything from, how to, structure your lesson or a discussion section, to how to ask questions well and like help students learn instead of just giving them the answer, how students even learn. So we have workshops on all of these things. We also have individual teaching consultations. So we have some amazing graduate teaching consultants that work with us, who are really good at helping you talk through what questions you have, and they're experienced IAs from all across campus. And then finally, we have a Canvas site that is different from the original online course, but meant to be sort of a repository of, holding place for a bunch of different resources, video recordings, et cetera. So that we hope will help sustain you as you go. But really, we are here to help you learn how to teach well. And I cannot stress enough how much more enjoyable teaching is when you have some of these strategies, but also the impact that can have on your professional development. And as you apply for positions in the future, being able to speak to some of these experiences and being able to have these skills will help you in the future. I also want to highlight, if you're applying for IAships, highlight any training that you've done. So whether you're applying within your department or in other departments, honestly, highlight, the training that you've done within your own department. Highlight, any workshops that you attend with us, et cetera, because that shows that you're taking the initiative to learn these teaching strategies. And that is going to be really appealing if they're looking at a whole bunch of people applying for an IA position. If they know that someone has, some strategies and ideas that they're coming in with for working with the students, that's going to look really good. So just a little pro tip there. All right. And that was really quick. I talked way too fast, but I apologize for talking so fast. We welcome your questions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So we're just going to cover a few next steps before we head into our live question and answer session. So some reminders, we do have some upcoming pre-arrival webinars. So on May 6th, we'll talk about graduate student funding and funding packages and finances related to that. On May 6th, so the first one is at 8:30 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. And then the next one will be at 11 a.m. talking about CBIS transfers. So if you're already in the US and you need to transfer your CBIS record, that will be May 6th at 11 a.m. Pacific time. On May 12th, we'll discuss campus safety. On May 14th, we'll talk about student life and getting involved on campus as an international graduate student. And then on May 20th, we'll go over student accounts and finances with Student Financial Solutions. So as you can see, we have some great webinars coming up. And as a friendly reminder, iwebinars.ucsd.edu is kind of your one-stop shop. So that's where you can both see recordings of webinars that we've already done, as well as register for upcoming pre-arrival webinars in the future. So if you go there and click on webinars for newly admitted students, that will be how you access those webinars. All right, some other reminders. So like Lisa mentioned, iPortal is open, so you can begin requesting your visa documents through iPortal by going to iportal.ucsd.edu. We also encourage, if you are planning to arrive to the US, to start looking at housing options. We did do a pre-arrival webinar focused on housing options for graduate students. So if you'd like to learn more about that process, we encourage you to check out that webinar. Coming up, like I mentioned, we have some webinars about graduate student funding, as well as CBIS transfers. And then additionally, we are so excited to welcome you in September through our new international student orientation. If you want to learn more about that, you're welcome to head to iorientation.ucsd.edu. Okay, and another thing I just wanted to highlight, so our office, ISPO, actually has a new feature that we really want to share with our new students. So if you go to our website, you can see ispo.ucsd.edu. On our website, you'll find this button in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. That's our Ask Triton chatbot feature. So this is a really great resource of when you just like have a question about something and you're like, how to request my I-20, or really, it has so much good information. So this is a great place to start with some of the questions that you might have, that you'll be able to get a lot of those answered. And then if you need further support, we are, of course, happy to provide it. Okay, so now is the time of our webinar that we will transition to our open question and answer. I have seen a few participants use the raise hand feature, and I just want to do a friendly reminder that we will be focusing all of our questions through the Q&A feature. So I really encourage you to utilize that resource. Additionally, we will, similar to what Martha said, we will try to answer questions that speak to a large audience of students that might apply across the board. If you have a really case-specific question, then we encourage you to reach out to our offices individually. We may not be able to get to questions that are super specific to your situation today, but we do want to assist you. So again, we encourage you to reach out to our offices and we can provide that support. Okay, so we see that you all have submitted a lot of really great questions. And our first question is most likely for, I would think, our colleagues from the Teaching and Learning Commons. And the first question reads, I have a bachelor's degree from the United States. Am I exempt from the English requirement for the TA, or is that also department-based?
Hello there. I've been busy answering questions in the Q&A. So thank you very much for that question. It's a good one. Currently, you do need to check with your department about that. If you were given a TOEFL waiver, and because you have your bachelor's degree from the US, you were given a TOEFL waiver. So please check with your department on that requirement. Okay, but I'm going to guess the answer is no, but it's by department.
Wonderful, thank you. All right, our next question reads, where can I find information about research assistant opportunities?
I think that's going to be my question. Because the way a research assistant position, we usually refer to that as a graduate student researcher, or GSR at UCSD. If we're talking about the same type of position, is different from an IA or instructional assistant because there is no class that is associated with that position. Generally speaking. Now, the graduate division on our website, I do believe we have a spot where that's talking about applying for research positions, but it is probably going to take me just a moment to find it, so I can put that in the chat once I get there. Thank you.
Thanks, Shauna. All right, our next question reads, when I applied for graduate school, I didn't have to submit the TOEFL score. Then I don't have to submit it for the TA as well, correct? So for students who didn't submit the TOEFL score when applying to graduate school at UC San Diego, does that mean they also don't have to submit it for the teaching assistantship position?
Okay, so this is a question I've been answering a lot in the Q&A, and so this is the final answer. If you were admitted with a TOEFL waiver, then you qualify to take the ELCE in general. But look to your department. They may require you to take the ELCE. The other question I've received a lot of is, my TOEFL score is expiring. What should I do? And we understand this. We've all experienced the pandemic. So know that the score you submitted for admission, and I said this in the talk, no matter when you take or apply to TA, we look at your TOEFL score that you submitted for admission. That score never expires for us. For TOEFL, yes. For us, no. Okay? So if you qualified, wonderful, congratulations.
Thank you, Martha. All right, so our next question reads, I'm very interested in becoming a TA. And I noticed that there is one requirement at the end for each applicant, which says it needs experience as a language instructor. Could you please give examples or define this term? Thank you.
Was that for me? I'm so sorry, Grace. I'm looking at the volume of questions here. What was that again? I will pay attention. I've closed chat.
No worries. I know we've been getting a lot of really good questions. So the question reads, I'm very interested in becoming one of the TAs, and I noticed that there is a requirement at the end for each applicant, which says it needs experience as a language instructor. Could you please give examples or define this term?
Oh, sure. I answered that question in the Q&A already. So please look to see if I've answered them. So if you're going to work as a language instructor, say you want to teach your native language, we have so many opportunities. One of my graduate student employees taught in the Japanese program. If you're going to teach your native language, you do not need to take the ELCE. You need to take that test when you're going to teach in English for a different program.
Great. Our next question reads, are we allowed to TA remotely if we are not able to arrive physically on campus this fall?
I'm happy to take that one, give Martha a break. So that's a great question. And yes, that is something you'd want to work out with your department to make sure that you're working with a course or a course instructor that is, or a course that would allow for remote sections or remote work. So definitely, I would be very upfront about that in talking with your department. But honestly, that's going to be a reality for a lot of folks in the coming year or so. So I would not, that should not keep you from getting an IA position. It would just have to be, the logistics of it would have to be sort of worked out with your course instructor and with the department as well. But definitely still apply. Everyone knows that that's going to be I don't even want to say an issue. It's not like it's a bad thing, but it's going to just be a reality.
Yes, and if I could just add to it. Oh, sorry, Shauna, go ahead.
I was just going to say we have the upcoming webinar on May 6th that I hope will also address this situation. That's all I was going to say, was just a little plug for next week's session. But Martha, you go.
Thank you, Shauna, and that's great information. And just to add to it, I want you to be optimistic and positive. We want you to be successful. We want you to enjoy being a student, even if you can't be here. So the only other thing I needed to add was that you saw those happy students in that frame of what it looked like to be remote. All of those students qualified to TA. All of them TA'd. Where the issues may come up is how we pay you and how we support you. So that's a key aspect to it, but we're working to help you be successful right away.
Great. Our next question reads, what's the possibility for master's students to get TA opportunities? Or will the majority of TA positions be saved for PhD students?
So great question. I test both masters as well as PhDs, and that depends on what the hiring department is looking for. I also know that we have some funding changes that will be coming up, but for right now, apply and take a chance and apply to the department that you want to work for, because you don't have to limit it to your own department. We at Engage Teaching, we hire graduate students to work for us. And so there are many opportunities to teach and to be employed. So don't limit yourself just to TA-ship. And as I mentioned, yes, master students, we welcome you to apply. You are successful and effective TAs, so just do it.
All right, our next question is probably for my colleague Shauna in the graduate division. So the question reads, I've requested my degrees from my undergraduate school to be sent to graduate division. I was informed that the documents have been sent successfully, but I cannot see any updates on the application portal. When should I expect to receive confirmation?
Yes, thank you so much, Grace. I do have some information about that from my colleagues who do all the admissions processing. And because right now is very much a peak period for our graduate admissions staff, as more and more students are being admitted and accepting admission, that this is a very busy time. And so at this point, they are postponing reviewing documents to lift your provisional admission until June. So just so you know, that is the timeline that we are working on. It sounded like for this person that they had already, that they knew for sure that it was submitted, so that's great. So you don't have to worry about that. But I did just want to let everyone know that that is the timeline that we are working off of.
Thank you. Our next question reads, can you please share any links or relevant resources pertaining to TA financial compensation or aid in the chat?
Sorry, Grace, can you say that again? I missed that.
So it's a request to share any links or relevant resources pertaining to TA financial compensation or aid, and putting some of those resources in the chat.
Okay, got you. So on the graduate division website where there is information about financial support, it does list the hourly rate that TAs are compensated. And it also includes information about the, you may be eligible for some portion of your fees to be covered. It's as a benefit as being part of a TA. It doesn't fully cover your fees. And it also is only available to people who are working at least 10 hours a week as a TA. But that information is on the graduate division's website, and I can pull that up and put those links in the chat.
All right, our next question reads that if a student would like to resubmit their new TOEFL score, where should they resubmit that to?
I'll take that one. They should submit it to the department, especially if they plan to use their new TOEFL score to qualify to take the ELCE.
Wonderful. All right, our next question reads that if a student who has worked as a TA at another US university and has been language tested in the US for that TA-ship, can that student submit the official test document and TA evaluations from that US institution for the English test waiver? For example, if I was a pass the oral proficiency test at, let's say, another UC and GSI for the past 2 semesters.
That's a great question. And yes, absolutely. That's the start of your professional employment, right? So anything you have done as an undergrad, if you have taken this exam, if you have been a TA as an undergrad or a tutor, submit all of that documentation to your department so they can make a quick and easy decision for what to do with that information. If we don't know it, we can't help you. So if you have been a TA, if you've taken the proficiency exam at your institution, submit the documentation to your department, and then you won't be taking the test for us. Okay, and congratulations. And also submit your TA evaluations. They're so useful. Okay, and give your department every reason to bypass the process, okay?
All right, our next question reads, can we use the classic whiteboard over Zoom if we lack drawing skills with the mouse?
That's a great question. The answer is yes. We want to make this as easy as possible for you. One of the last students that I tested, she had a whiteboard. We waited for the camera angle to shift. She did it. And quite frankly, you know, her English language was fine. We didn't need the whiteboard to make a recommendation about her English. But, you know, we'll take what we can get. We're still in a pandemic, okay?
All right, so we are approaching the end of our time together for this webinar. So I wanted to hand it over to my colleagues if there are any last reminders, or if you've seen a common question come up through the Q&A feature that you want to speak to as we close our time together today. So any parting words of wisdom or final reminders that you would like to speak to this audience? Oh, Erilyn, I think we're having a bit of a trouble hearing you.
Okay, better? All right. So sorry, a 5-year-old hand coming through there. But I just wanted, someone had asked what the role of an instructional assistant is, and I realized I never actually clarified that. So thank you. Thank you for that foundational and essential question. So as an IA, if you could be, you know, you might be mainly grading if you're a reader, but honestly, if you're hopefully, if you get to be a tutor or an instructional assistant leading discussion sections or lab sections eventually, you'll get to actually be working directly with students. And this means helping them try to understand the material. So you are coming in as an expert. They are novices to this learning. So you're really trying to help them bridge that gap. So that might be talking with them. Asking questions is a huge thing, and you've learned, like, this is stuff that we can work with you through our workshops, Martha's class and workshops, all of this. It's really about figuring out how to best communicate with the students is going to be essential for that role. And that's why it translates so well for professional development. So thank you for that question.
And as I scrolled through the Q&A, I just want to remind you that for your specific questions, you will find information on the department website that applies to you and your unique situation. And that would be my best advice for any graduate student, whether you're from a different country or whether you were born and raised in the US. Your department is the home you'll be with for the next few years. So look to that department information to guide you. They're there to help and support you. The larger campus-wide policies, I'm happy to address. You know, I've been meeting with students on Zoom calls from around the world live, and I don't mind doing that. I want you to be able to feel confident about the information. So please ask us. And the last slide came up, ELPII at UCSD. And please ask us your questions. And if it's better to meet on Zoom, I'm happy to do that.
Wonderful. Well, we just want to thank our colleagues for joining us today and just covering a wealth of information. As you can see, there are many folks in place who are excited to welcome you and assist you as you begin your journey at UC San Diego. So we hope you have a great rest of your day and hope to see you at another pre-arrival webinar. Thank you.